I'm joined now by Professor Ian Acheson, a former prison officer and governor, and author of a new book, Screwed, Britain's Prison Crisis and How to Escape It. Lovely to see you this morning, Professor. How big is this crisis?
Hi, Camilla. It's very big. Is the simple answer. I was listening to your previous interview with Tim Shipman. My book's about a third of his size, but I bet mine has more swearing in it because it's hard to avoid, basically. What are we talking about here? In essence, it's a collision of three interrelated catastrophes that have made the whole system screwed. First of all, overcrowding. We're locking up far too many offenders in far too few places for the good that we can do them, or indeed society or future victims. We cannot build our way fast enough out of this crisis because of sentencing and because of COVID backlogs now being eaten into. The system is running red hot in terms of capacity. It's running about 99%, and it's forced the current Lord Chancellor, Alex Chalk, to start releasing prisoners earlier and earlier from their sentences in order to try to create just a bit of desperate headroom to stay ahead. That is unsustainable, and it's also unjust. Second issue, understaffing. This was made in number 11 in 2010 during the coalition government. By the criminally stupid austerity program for the criminal justice system, and it was executed by Whitehall. So between 2010 and 2016, where the prison population stayed around about the same, 84,000, there was a 26% reduction in frontline prison officers. So all of the experience, thousands of years of experience, was driven out really quickly, and as should have been totally foreseeable and predictable by the people in charge of the system, every metric of decency, of order and safety went into the skip. And now, fast forward to 2024, there was no humility. There was just a kind of, I think Liz Truss started it, to give her some credit, an emergency recruitment, bums on seats, hastily trained, very poorly equipped teenagers thrown into the maw of what the Prison Officers Union say is one of the most hostile working environments in Europe, leaving almost as fast as they can be recruited. And we're still 10% down in prison officer figures on that 2010 figure, and we've got 4,000 more prisoners and going steadily upwards. The third issue is related to the first two, and that is a corporate failure. We've got a prison service headquarters with over 5,500 people working there, apparently accountable for prisons where they can't scrape enough people together to run education, to run workshops, to run offending behaviour programmes, and to fundamentally keep themselves and prisoners safe. A prison officer is assaulted on average now once an hour, every day, every week. We've had a prison officer recently just taken off a ventilator after being so seriously assaulted in HMP Whitemoor, one of our high security prisons, that he was in a coma. Thankfully now he's recovering. That's one of our high security prisons that the Chief Inspector of Prisons visited last year and said was one of the filthiest that he'd ever inspected. And my simple point is about this gigantic bureaucracy of monitoring that fails all the time. If you cannot get the bins emptied in a place like Whitemoor, holding dozens of terrorists, holding some of the biggest risk in Western Europe, what else is going on? And these people have been remote, they've been inaccessible, they've been detached from the front line, they proliferate a bureaucracy that squats on top of prison governors and their staff, and they make life the mission of rehabilitating people and just even keeping people safe, which is foundational to everything else hopeful, impossible. Hence, truth.
Another theme of the book, I mean, you've raised the reasons for it there, but obviously a void is created, not least when there's this sense that the prisoners are in charge and the guards aren't. You raise warnings about the rise of Islamic extremism and indeed neo-Nazi extremism behind bars. How concerning is that, and what evidence have you seen of that, Professor?
Well, I was asked by the government to investigate Islamist extremism in prisons, probation and the youth justice system back in 2016. And a lot of the concerns I raised then, I think, unfortunately, are still valid. Has there been progress? Yes, there has, mostly because that progress was forced on the prison service, who believed, in a deranged way, that they were world class at dealing with extremism before my report came in. So there have been some policy improvements there, But on the front line, you still have in our high security prisons a constant and unrelenting struggle for power and control, which is disfiguring relationships between staff and prisoners, and which is threatening national security. Because unfortunately, as we have seen on numerous occasions now, terrorists go into our prisons and they spend sometimes years there. And some of them, like the case of Usman Khan, who went on to murder two kids at a rehabilitation celebration grotesquely back in 2019, come out worse than when they went in. And one of the things that I'm worried about, with two things basically in relation to that, is first of all that we are quite close, I think, still to seeing the murder of a prison officer on duty by a terrorist. That is a perfectly rational thing to do, particularly if you're an Islamist extremist and you've been locked up through a plot that's been detected upstream, so you've failed in your mission, and you have a completely oppositional view of the state, and you've got vulnerable and available targets around. And in 2020, in Whitemoor again, they came within seconds and millimetres of doing just that. That's a problem.
Okay.
It's rational also, just to finish the point, for the growing number of neo-fascist, neo-Nazi prisoners in custody to look at what Islamists are doing and to try to compete with them. And we're beginning to start to see that as well. Very worrying.
Okay. Professor Acheson, thank you very much indeed for your insights. And if anyone wants to read that book, it's Screwed, and it's out now, about the British prison system.